Hello, it's your girl Marissa Saucy back at it again with another video, and today I am excited because we're going to be talking about books, one of my favorite categories of items in the entire world. So let's get into it. Hello! Also, can we talk about the fact that if I'm sitting here filming a video with like real props and things in front of me, that I'm just committing really hard to the whole posting videos on YouTube bit, and I just want to say no one is as taken aback, no one is as surprised as I am. But, you know, nonetheless, I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad that today we can discuss some books because honestly, one of my biggest and most cherished pastimes of the pandemic has been reading. And
also, a lot of people have spoken to me, or at least superficially expressed interest in starting a book club with me. And I really appreciate the gesture, but I just want to say that I'm not gonna lie, a couple times I've been disappointed. There have been people who said
3 hours later.
I just want to share the things I've been reading since January of this year. And if you've read them, please leave your comments below. We can talk about them. I really miss being in school where you could just, you know, fire off ideas and interpretations with other people. That's my jam. And I'm hoping to recreate that in some way, shape, or form here. And serious inquiries only. If you are down to start a book club, and I really mean like read a book, discuss it, maybe come up with some discussion questions. Let's do it. Hit my line. Okay. That is my favorite thing to do in the world. And even if that's not happening in real life, obviously I'm trying to superficially make it happen over YouTube. So anyway, let's get into it. So the first book that I read this year was All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, and it had been on my list for a really long time. I love Anthony as an author, which we'll get to in a second. But this book in particular also won the Pulitzer Prize, so you know she's legitimate or whatever. And most importantly, as you can see, I got it for 20% off at Target, which was a steal. But yeah, this story follows Marie-Laure Leblanc, who is a French girl, and Werner Fennig, who is a German orphan, as they sort of navigate World War II. And it follows their own individual stories and then ultimately shows how they come together and in what context their lives intersect towards the end. But this book, 10 out of 10, I absolutely loved. As I was sort of hinting at before, Anthony Doerr, the reason that he's one of my favorite authors is because he puts so much care into every single sentence that he crafts. I was reading somewhere that I think this book took him like 10 years to write, and it makes sense why. Like, he actually cares so much about every single word that he's picking, every sentence. Like, he writes so beautifully. This book is 500 plus pages, okay? So she's thick, and every single sentence is written exquisitely. I don't know how he does it. I think the way that he's able to capture such, you know, huge, overwhelming, complex topics like war and coming of age, loss of innocence, love, nationalism, like identity, all from the lens of, you know, two teenagers who are going through it. He just does it so beautifully. And like, if you want to cry, this book will get you there. I don't know. I cried like 4 times during this book. I don't even know if there were 4 points that you were supposed to cry during, but I did. So 10 out of 10. My friend Adelie was telling me that one of her metrics for good books or TV or film is whether or not it makes you cry, and this book definitely passed the test. I agree with that metric. I think that is so true, that if a book can move you that much to actually have like a physical reaction to it, chef's kiss. Okay, 10 out of 10. Definitely would recommend. Read this. Thank you. The next book I read was Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. This book follows a kid, Wade Watts, as he is navigating the dystopian society of the year 2044, and basically the entire world is playing this game set up by James Halliday, who is this huge video game mogul icon in the book, and everyone is trying to win his huge fortune. So they have to save the world and try to win money while they're at it, I think. Something like that. Anyone who's read the book, please let me know if I'm like 100% off. Clearly it seems like I didn't read it, but I did, and I actually enjoyed it. I honestly think that what happened is this book is written for people who are fans of like vintage video games. Ernest Cline, the author, grew up, I think, in the 70s or 80s. And so this book is sort of a tribute to all of the vintage video games of the age that he grew up in. So as someone who, you know, doesn't really know too much about that, a lot of the references went over my head. But that being said, I still really enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. At first I was like, this is a book about video games. I don't know, but I did enjoy it. It was cool. It was definitely one of those books that's sort of like a puzzle, and so there are a lot of moving pieces that have to come together, which I like. So I enjoyed it. I would give this 4 out of 5 stars. I know that the previous review that I did was out of 10, but I guess we're going with uneven scales now. I feel bad giving this an 8 out of 10, but I feel okay about giving it a 4 out of 5, if that makes sense. Yeah? Okay, moving on. The next book I read was Normal People by Sally Rooney. This, full disclosure, is also a Christmas gift that I was supposed to give to my friend Isabel. Isabel, I did read it, but I promise it's in good shape, so you can have it when you get home. I have no words for this book. I loved it. I think I read it all in one day. I'm pretty sure it was Valentine's Day too, so I was just in my feels the entire day. And it was all thanks to your girl, Sally. I had watched the series before reading, which I usually don't do, but I broke my rule this time, and I do think there's something so special about reading Rooney's like actual writing. Obviously the series like stayed really true to her work, and I think they did such a good job with it. But yeah, I just really enjoyed this. I think Sally Rooney as an author is so like not pretentious, even though she's clearly so intelligent, and the fact that this book is just so honest in its portrayal of people, but also is able to discuss, you know, things like class and Marxism and, you know, social norms and all this other stuff. I mean, it's so rich and just beautiful. I don't know, Sally, she killed it. She killed it. One thing though, I remember reading the first chapter and realizing that there were going to be like no quotation marks in this book, and I was stressed. I was really stressed, because I was like, how are we supposed to be able to distinguish when the characters say something versus what's actually going on in the plot? And I guess I really had to check myself, because it was like, those things are the same. You know, what the characters say and what's actually happening. Like, why do we distinguish them in the first place? And so I really had to check my perspective. I don't know why Sally did that, but I mean, clearly I was challenged in my thinking, and thank you for that. Thank you, Sally. Sally, you killed it. There are so many people who can speak about this book more intelligibly and critically and better, in general, better than I can. But I absolutely loved it. 10 out of 10. I feel like this is the type of book that I would come back to and just continue to get things out of it, because she's just such a wise author. Wow. Chef's kiss. Good job, Sally. Shifting gears completely. The next book I read was The Motley Investment Guide for Teens. I am not a teen. I also recognize that this book is old as hell. Yeah, she was written in 2002. So I don't really know why I decided to read this. I think it might have been around the whole like GameStop thing going on, and I think my brother had this book in his room, and I decided to figure out how to use money. It was fine. I think solid, even though the book is pretty old, there are still some solid tips in the book. I do think personal finance is so important, and maybe I can make another video about that. Not that I know that much, but I do think financial independence is absolutely so important to be thinking about, especially when you're young. So, you know, this book is trying to make sure that that is the norm now, and I support that. Yeah, solid book. I don't even know if I can give it a rating. It was like fine. I think everyone should do it. It's like required reading in my opinion, but not because it's like a great book. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Anyway, moving on. Continuing on the nonfiction trend, I guess, the next book I read was The Italians by John Hooper, and as the name suggests, it is supposed to be, you know, a portrait of a people, a description for how and why Italy's history and cultural past have manifested themselves in and shaped modern-day Italian society, which sounds great on the surface, and I really thought that I would enjoy this book. I even read, you know, on one of the first couple of pages that John Hooper introduces himself as a journalist who lives in Rome and speaks 6 languages. 6 languages! Like, we get it. Okay, John Hooper is an icon. I want to be him. So immediately I was like, okay, John Hooper, credibility, check. Absolutely. Like, let's read the book. Also, for people who don't know, I have been studying Italian for the past couple of years. I took it for 2 years at university. So definitely have been like exploring Italian language and culture for the past couple of years. So I thought this would be a really great pick for myself. Plus, it was only like $4 at the half price bookstore. So thank you, HPB. But I think I have 2 main critiques for this book. The first is, and I guess I should have known, as soon as I picked up a book that was called The Italians, as if you could use a definite article to describe what it means to be a member of Italian society, is that this book, of course, tries to paint a cohesive, singular picture of what it means to be Italian. And I think that maybe anthropologically that's a useful exercise, but to me, it was just like overwhelmingly reductive. And I think I knew that going in. I hope that I knew that going in, but I don't think I realized the extent of it until I was actually reading. And so much of the book, because it's trying to make connections between broader Italian history and like what's going on in society, of course it's going to paint with really broad strokes. But I don't know, to me it just felt like it just portrayed Italian society as if it was this monolith, which I inherently disagree with, because societies are made up of people and there's so much more nuance to it that obviously I'm sure John Hooper realizes wasn't able to be fit into a book. But even though it was like educational for someone who's maybe not, you know, super informed on Italy, I think just the danger of it is that, you know, it's sort of reinforcing a couple of stereotypes, in my opinion. And my second critique is that there were all these pictures, okay? Pictures in this book that I thought were beautiful and were interesting, but there are pictures like this that have no caption whatsoever and nothing to do with the chapters. I was so confused. Like, why? And then I even went to the appendix section, to the notes section, to the index. Nothing. There's just no explanation of why any of these images are in there. Like, it's so confusing. John, what were you doing? I was rooting for you.
We were all rooting for you.
Anyway, this book, I would give it a 3 out of 5, which is really sad. I expected to like it a lot. The cover was cute, but it just didn't do it for me. This was really disappointing, actually. Okay. Ciao to that book is what I have to say. Shifting gears one last time back to the world of fiction. I'm not saying it was because of my man John Hooper, but I'm not saying it was because of my man John Hooper either. I think overall I was just sick and tired of reading about the real world, and I just wanted a book to take me away to a different time, to a different place, and that's exactly what this last book did. So finally, I read Cinnamon Gardens by Shyam Selvadurai. I actually heard about this book in another YouTube video. If you're interested in the whole reading literary commentary space, I would highly recommend Jack Edwards' channel. I will link it in the description box below. But it's one of my favorite channels. He just reads so many books and comments on all of them, and it's a dream come true. You know, I love watching his videos. So anyway, I got this recommendation from that channel, and I actually really enjoyed this book as well. It follows two characters, Analukshmi and her uncle Balendran, who both live in, as the title alludes to, Cinnamon Gardens, which is sort of a wealthy neighborhood in modern-day Sri Lanka during the 1920s. And Analukshmi is a teacher. She is also trying hard to resist the limitations that society and her family put on her because she's a woman. Girl, I hear you. It's like 100 years later, but still fighting the fight. So that's that. And then her uncle Balendran is dealing with the aftermath of his former lover, Richard, coming back into town. And Balendran sort of has to reconcile his identity now as a father, as a son, as a Holy Spirit, with his like true desires and who he actually wants. So very, very steamy stuff indeed. But I like the way that the author creates such lovable characters. I feel like the entire way I was really rooting for them. I also love the way that he uses imagery and describes the setting so beautifully. This is probably one of the first novels that I've read that has been set in this part of the world, and I feel like it just made me so interested in exploring more literature from this area, and also hopefully when we're finally able to travel again, to visit all the places that he was writing about here. But yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I think it was like a light read. The plot isn't too crazy, but I think that it was solid. That is it. Those are all the books that I've read since January of this year. Thank you for coming along with me on this journey as we become slowly but surely literate. If you have thoughts on the books that I mentioned or book recommendations, please let me know in the comments below or through another medium, because I'm always looking for new book recommendations. For context, I'm in the middle of The Sixth Extinction and How to Avoid a Climate Disaster by Bill Gates. So if I make another one of these videos in the future, I will be starting with those. But in general, I feel like I've been on a kick of trying to read more environmental justice type books, because that is a field that I do not know nearly as much as I would like to about. And of course, it's extremely important. So if you have recommendations for those topics in particular, please let me know. But otherwise, I'm always open to hearing about books and whatever people think, you know, is good. So hit my line. But other than that, thank you so much for watching this video. As always, like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you next time. Bye!